Oh, people. I don't understand. What- we elect officials who say that they're here to help the people. We elect, these so-called leaders who say that they are here to make change, positive change. Words like progressives, like those dirty words that keep coming up. But at the end of the day, what have they really done? Damage. More and more damage. There is entire societies that have discovered the way to get what they want is by guilting you hard into submission. It's not about what's right and what's wrong. It's about ensuring that you stay elected. And if we look at places like England and France and even Canada recently, who have declared this so-called, they will declare in September in the UN General Assembly an independent Palestinian state. When you go country by country, what you discover from each and every one of them is an internal and external pressure to cave, to give in. Now, yes, there are provisions, Stuart, but reality here, folks, is they're caving in. And you know what? If you're going to cave in on this, what the hell is next? Welcome back, everybody, to the Rant Network. I'm David Solomon. Stuart is finally back after missing a full day of our ranting. You, as we know regularly, if you've been a regular on our show, we're unedited, uncensored, unfiltered, and so unapologetic of our rants, our opinions, and our angles on society, modern life, politics, and so much more. We love to really challenge the absurdities of modern life. And we love it when you guys comment about it because you think we are a bunch of eccentrics. But the reality is when you go out there and you talk to the average person, they agree. They're on our side and they're happy to hear this kind of voice. So sit back today as we go into another degree of absurdity in society. Stuart, I'll tell you, as we were talking, I'm really furious with Canada as a Canadian that once again the leader of Canada is continuously buckling to Arab pressure within the party, from votes, you name it, to declare this, to just side with Hamas, to continue to side with Hamas. And yet all the other problems in Canada don't matter. They just don't. But let's focus on Palestine because that's going to fix the problems in Canada. But Stuart covered something that may be the first tip of the domino of this so-called Palestine declaration that people aren't even talking about.
And I'm curious what that is. But let's try and understand that when you take the kids in the classroom that are the most disruptive and you basically don't punish them for their bad acts, instead promote them, trying to use this concept that it's okay, little Johnny, just because you cut all of Betty's hair off, you're still going to get your lunch and we're going to give you your extra 15 minutes for recess. And, that lunchtime, you can come back to class late. Don't worry. We don't want to, hurt little Johnny. The Palestinians, are being abused by a group called Hamas. But who are Palestinians? They're a bunch of Bedouins that have been exiled from Syria, Jordan, and others. When a country like Canada, and little Mark Carney decide to put focus that we should do this without much thought or much care, he is trying to therefore take care of and coddle a group that lies, murders, kills, rapes, doesn't follow any convention. But Mr. Carney, little Carney, like a little fall, I think he may be in Canada, because that's not going to change his economics. It's not going to change the fact that Canadians are literally the poorest would be state if you were to took Canada as one state in the United States. It would be below Louisiana. The tax rate is out of control. The services are far from they're lacklustering in every which way. They're no longer the shiny penny that they once were. The stock markets, the TSA futures are getting crippled. And little Carney wants to try and play name games with the world's biggest bully, Donald Trump, calling him names like Little Taco Tim, Taco Trump. It's ridiculous. But if you focus back on the issue where countries are trying to dictate what Israel should do, they should think twice. Canada had agreed to pay billions to the historical mistreatment of help me, David,
Nation?
indigenous population. England is now being chased down by the Caribbean community for reparations. You have Haiti chasing France down for its horrible slavery things from 1800s. Hey, you know what? Even Missouri sued China for COVID for $24 billion. I got to tell you, we're teaching a generation to support evil, twisted politicians. Are the people that are following along responsible? Well, yeah, they are. Because they're literally going along with this. But it's the politicians that are trying to get elected, like Mondami, right? A true psychopath in New York that can smile, nod his head, say really nice things. Say, David, you got wonderful glasses. Can I put the knife in your back and twist it a few times? Don't worry. It's going to hurt for a while, but you'll be dead and I'll be happy. And the guy says this crap with a smile. This is Mark Carney. This is the world politicians appeasing and just smiling at you. And the population seems to like to be lied to, because I can't believe they're that stupid. You cannot change by supporting the wrong and making it right. You're destroying a generation. The kids on campus that were going bananas, persecuting Jews, being raped. You know what? For every black kid that got involved in that, forgot that his mother and father was beaten, even or as worse as it was now. That black family that took part in this forgets that their ancestors were beaten and enslaved. But the world doesn't want to remember its darkest hours. Let's forget about it. I think that's right. We're going to take something from you. I'm going to make it mine. That isn't the way a civilized world functions. You know what? You're not going to declare a Palestinian state in the land of Israel no more than I'm declaring Ottawa, Stewart and Davidville, and telling Mark Carney you're being evicted from the house. That's as ridiculous as all these comments have been. And you know what? The globalist little Mark Carney that has 3 passports, that seems to always agree with 2 other people, like it's like going out of style. It's like a little kid trying to be a part of a big kid's group. But you know what, Mr. Carney? You're a little stick, and you're never going to be more than just a little stick. David?
I know, Stuart, you have a love affair with Mr. Carney, and I get what you're trying to do, but I think where you kind of missed, my friend, is the net effect. And what you kind of went after, you talked about Carney, and that's great. But here's the thing, Stuart, where I think you could have gone further with this was, let's talk about societal screw-ups. Let's talk about what these politicians are doing. So for starters, what you said about the reparations that Haitians want now from France, let's take a look at what's going on in the United States up until the Biden administration. The demand for reparations from California for slavery that dated back generations. Okay, the noisy people, getting what they want. Look at what goes on with your politicians. Who gets all the attention? It's not the quiet politician. It's not the nice politician. It's the noisy bastard who makes as much noise like an AOC, like a Bernie Sanders, like an Elizabeth Warren, like a Nancy Pelosi. They make noise. They disrupt. They try to convince people they're right. And then look what ends up happening. So, Stuart, let me talk about repercussions of politicians' moves, shall we? Because if we take a look right now, let's talk about what's going on here in Montreal. No one has really done much to stop this movement of hate. The movement of hate that exploded after October 7th. Now, it's not to say there hasn't been anti-Semitism in Canada, but I'm just going to use Canada as one example, in Montreal as a particular. We've seen what has happened. We firebomb synagogues. We shoot at schools. We attack students. Government isn't doing anything. Let's keep ramping it up. Let's keep ramping it up. And now the most recent thing is that the organizers of the Pride Parade here in Montreal for 2025, have denied Ga'ava, which is the Jewish group of LGBTQ, and its counterparts, the Iranians, who's supporting Israel and supporting what's going on in terms of stopping Iran and whatever, have both been banned from marching in the Gay Pride Parade in Montreal. And where's the reaction? Where your crickets sound. It ain't there. And what people are not really paying attention to these are the repercussions we're talking about. But the more you started off by talking about, a kid in class who gets what they want and that's what we've taught society, Stuart. I speak to teachers, for example, and I love this story that a teacher, she told me, she goes, a kid was suspended for a day for disrupting the class after many warnings and whatever. So what did the parents do? Took the kid on a cruise for a week. So the kid wouldn't feel bad. This is what we're teaching society. Be disruptive, be vicious, be unapologetic, and guess what ends up happening? You end up winning what you want. And this is what is happening with Keir Starmer in the UK. 120 members of parliament who clearly have an agenda of hate, have forced Starmer to go and make this declaration. Now, if you read below the declaration of Palestinian state, there are a whole bunch of conditions, but they don't want to focus on that. What they want to focus on is that Starmer is forcing Israel's hand. And the more they can convince Starmer this way, the more that the MPs in Canada can force Carney, the more that Macron is cornered, the more they're going to demand and disrupt. And so you see people like Mamdani, who in the US, it's different, but he too is forcing the Democratic Party to commit. And the AOCs and these Bernie Sanders are forcing the Democratic Party to commit to this radicalism so that they can force this crazy change in society. People don't understand. It's criminal when you talk about defunding the police, when you talk about defunding society so that you can twist it and turn it the way you want it because you think that's the right way. You're creating a revolution. And that is what's occurring right now. So to see just what the Haitians are doing in France, I'm wondering who's next. Who else is going to come up to England and France with the handout going, you owe me for screwing up my country? Could you imagine Algiers, what they're going to do to the French? Could you imagine can you imagine the British, suddenly people are going to show up to Britain and say, demanding reparations for what they did 200, 300, 400 years ago? Look, there are over 140 countries who've declared that they want a Palestinian state. Okay, I get it. And I'm not going to get into the politics and the absolute absurdism that is behind it. But what you've taught your society is, if you are an asshole, you win. If you disrupt society, you win. If you are a chaotic revolutionary, you win. Bravo, Stuart. Bravo.
As we wrap the quarter hour, and we've gone a lot of different topics today, and it's one of those Fridays where there's just so much insanity. I would like you to take a moment. And I'd like you to think about your neighbor who walks over to your house and says, I've got these people in from out of town and they're going to stay at your house. What I forgot to say is, do you mind, David? I have some people in from out of town. Can I use a couple of your extra bedrooms? People like Mandami, people like Carney seem to want to omit there is a process. That Palestinian state was something that wasn't waved as a carrot to these people decades ago. They refused it. They wanted to go to war for it. And today they still want to go for war for it, and they still don't want to give in. At the end of the day, those people are starving because they're starving their own people. They want to show what something could look like. It's literally taking a canvas and throwing black and blood on it. David, that's it. It's a
No,
wrap.
Stuart, you know what? I'm going to tell you what you just said is very interesting. But watch what's next. Because if these people get what they want, Stuart, if you continue to teach society that you should be disruptive, if they burn an entire town down, will you give in? Because that just seems to be the MO right now. And I don't want to give anybody any ideas. But if you could push it this way, Stuart, I think the sky is the limit for them. That's it, ladies and gentlemen, for another week of the Rant Network. We thank you so much for your support. We're on Facebook, YouTube, we're on all the socials. So please, 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 if you see something you really like, put it down. Have yourself a wonderful weekend, guys. We'll see